What's going on, everybody? This is 13 with Superior Mobile by 13, and today is part one of a series of my bathroom audio system revamp. So what has happened is I've got these two 10-inch Sony Marine subwoofers. One of them I have decided, which I have marked with this, has blown. There is no question about how it happened. I was jamming out to an entire Dark Light Sessions by Freddie Legrand on YouTube in the shower on full tilt volume. And so several days later, I noticed this guy started to go boop, 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 boop. I have removed them already. That's why the screw caps are exposed. Currently, the setup that I've had and been running for several years is the Sony 6.5-inch Marine speakers, these coaxes right here. So those are going to get replaced as well because, well, whatever. We're upgrading the subs, so let's upgrade the speakers. And this is the radio that drives it, along with the waterproof controller in the shower. So that will be remaining because I love this radio. It does everything that I need, which is only one thing, and that is to play a USB memory stick in the water heater closet. However, just to be clear, it is an actual true CD player, so that comes in handy sometimes. And into the water heater closet we go. You can see I never did really a full setup in here, but this is the Sony Marine 600 watt amplifier. It is a 4-channel. It is what is running that system. 2 dedicated channels to the subwoofers and 2 dedicated channels to the speakers. All of the wiring is done through the wall here, so this I cannot modify without replacing drywall, so I'm going to do my absolute best to not have to run any new wiring through the wall. And it's running off of my old car battery, which would no longer start my car, but it was enough to provide reserve power for this thing to run as long as it stays on a battery tender. So that is the current existing setup. Since I'm upgrading the subs and the speakers, I will be replacing this amplifier as well, even though it's perfectly fine and dandy. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the replacement equipment. This is, of course, my end of year absolute complete. Treat yourself, 13. You deserve it because you've been working your butt off all year. Luxury expense. So this is not normal for me. Please don't judge me by this, but I am just going insane because if you're gonna do it, let's do it big. These are going to be the Fusion subwoofer replacements. Rather than replacing just some standard 6.5s, I will be upgrading to the Fusion Marine 8.8s. So I'm not only significantly increasing the size of the speaker, I am doubling the quantity and doing 2 sets of 8.8s. In order to power all of that, I will be using the Fusion Signature subwoofer amp of 2200 watts on that bad boy, and then a 4-channel over here, 1400 watts total on that one. So a significant increase in power, which of course requires a larger reserve capacity. So I am putting a new Shurikan AGM, what is this one? 1650 watts. And that's still just gonna live on the trickle charger. So needless to say, this should be an extremely interesting upgrade in that bathroom, and it should allow me to listen to my music carefree for as loud and as long as I want in the shower. Now the first step is to get the subs in. I really lucked out on this one. As you can see, I designed this enclosure where there would be a very minimal gap between the outer diameter of this subwoofer and the inner diameter of this trim ring. This trim ring is part of the subwoofer enclosure, and it's MDF, and it's got a round over to it, and I designed that specifically act as a transition between the subwoofer and the foam, which is covering this enclosure. I had a big concern that the new subwoofers would be a larger outer diameter, but it turns out that it's actually a more narrow diameter, so it fits inside that little cradle just fine with enough gap that it doesn't bother me, so I'm extremely happy. Now you may notice that the bolt patterns are different between these two. The only screw locations that these two share are the ones on the left and the right, so that I was able to reuse. Originally I had these machine screws and I have some T-nuts built into the enclosure, so the only difference that I had to do was replace these shorter ones with these longer screws. That allowed me to reuse those 2 holes. As for the 4 other screws, the subwoofers came with these stainless steel screws, so I pre-drilled some holes and just threw it into the wood. Alright, now to do a quick comparison of the subwoofers outside of the enclosure so you can see them. The Sony Marine audio of yesteryear, as Rob over at Soundwaves would put it, is just car audio that's painted white. So this is very acceptable for the period of time that I used it, and and I had no problem with it. However, this is a true marine subwoofer, and so it is designed specifically for the marine environment. I absolutely love this grill over this style grill. You may have noticed these RGB wires right here. This allows a little halo ring right there to light up the subwoofer. I will not be using any RGB accent lighting on these subwoofers or the other 8.8-inch speakers that also have this feature, because I love the lighting in the bathroom and I don't intend on changing it or affecting it with additional unnecessary lighting. So that was the first step. Both subwoofers have now been replaced. That was easy, that was quick, and any sane person would now stop at this point in time. Alright, so the Sony 6.5s have been removed, and let me just show you real quickly how they were originally mounted inside of the wall. What I did was I took a 2x8 and I blocked it in between the two studs, so you can see that we've got about 1.5 inches of wood, 1/4 inch of drywall, and 1/2 inch of foam. The new speaker holes are now cut. I did that primarily with a jigsaw and an extended blade, as well as the oscillating tool. Right there is where this piece of 2x4 was in there, and it had the drywall screws, so I had a little bit of a blowout, so I did some mud patchwork back there. Not that that'll ever be seen or really matters, but as I said, the speakers were originally supported with these 2x8s that were screwed in to the studs, and so with that jigsaw you can see this is basically what I cut. This one was the easy one, that just popped right out. This one had to come out in sections, and this one, as you see, same as that one. So the next step is to reinforce this drywall and foam combination with some wood on the backside so that I can install some speakers. Alright, so I'm ready to install some speakers now. As you can see, I've reinforced all of the backside with 3/4 inch plywood, anywhere that there wasn't already the 1.5 inch thick wood reinforcement. So no matter what, it's going to be screwed into something solid. All of the mounting holes have already been pre-drilled as well, so it is ready to go. Wiring for these speakers are going to be done in series, so we're going to have a 4 ohm and a 4 ohm, so an 8 ohm load on the amplifier. That is primarily because I cannot run new wiring over to the amplifier through the walls, so it's okay. There's going to be more than enough power for these things in this tiny room. Now this isn't even a really fair comparison, but this is the existing setup, which was dual 6.5 inch speakers, and this is going to be the new setup, which is quadruple 8.8 inch speakers. That is the difference. It is gonna be big, and I think I'm gonna have some pretty decent output. So phase 2 of the audio system revamp has been completed, and the speakers are now officially installed. I'm extremely pleased with the way that they look, and even more excited to see how they will eventually perform. So I just finished building the amp mounting rack that's gonna go in the water heater closet, and I figured I'd get some footage of it out here while I've got some good lighting, because once it goes in there, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to see. The wiring will go in through here. I've got it fully carpeted right now with little cutouts for the wiring, so hopefully it should look as clean as possible. Got a mirror black acrylic on the inside and a nice little design hanging out on the side here. Just me being a little artsy, I guess. This has been real fun to build because there's been no timetable or pressure in order to complete this for anybody other than myself, and fully understanding and recognizing that this is completely unnecessary has really made the project that much more enjoyable for me to take on. And in case you were wondering, of course, that is a beautiful little decal of my By 13 logo that I have flushed into the vinyl there. The majority of the materials used in this amp construction are also recycled. All of the acrylic was destined for the trash can. The carpet is old, leftover from an old job. The vinyl's all leftover from other work, and the wood itself is just reused flooring from the house. Okay, the installation is underway. All the old equipment has been removed. I have loomed the wiring coming out of the wall, and I have put the new battery in place. So next comes the actual amp mount itself. Okay, so now the amp rack is in place and things are getting pre-wired. The remote wires are popping through the holes, power and ground. This one was just a wee bit short, so he's held on by a clamp. We got the RCAs, we got the speaker wires, and we got the subwoofer wires. And as we go back here, you can see that the majority of things are pre-wired up. There's going to be the fuse holder for the master supply. We got both grounds just on the battery terminal. The battery tender is already tapped into the ground and the power, and that's chilling back there. It plugs in right there. And then finally we've got the fuse for the radio. Well, I tell you, this thing is just going together like a real treat. Both of the amps are essentially mounted in place. The speaker leads are not completed, so that I can now set up the tuning. So I just finished tuning with my handy dandy oscilloscope, and I have got to say, I am very disappointed. I had no idea that that radio had such incredibly poor quality output. I have been running this old Sony single DIN radio for almost 6 or 7 years now, which means I completely completely forgot about when I originally set up this system and tuned it. What I can tell you right now is that this thing's preamp output is terrible. It is rated at a measly 2 volts, but I would argue that the amount of distortion introduced after the 1 volt threshold is unacceptable. This is the major weakest link in this system, and it needs to be addressed. What is extremely unfortunate is that this is tied into that, and I really don't want to lose my ability to control the music from inside the shower, so I'm gonna have to do some research and figure out what I can do about this. Okay, so it took a lot of phone calls yesterday and a lot of conversations with a lot of people in order to figure out the solution to my problem of needing to replace that head unit. My first choices of Fusion radios or Sony Marine radios yielded little results because I had a requirement that I wanted to be able to play lossless audio files. To me, what that means is a WAV file or a FLAC file. Apparently, and understandably so, the industry is transitioning mostly to streaming audio sources rather than local sources. I, however, of course, have a huge library of lossless audio on my computers, and I only want to play music in my shower on a thumb drive. And so I was introduced to Kenwood. This is my first Kenwood purchase. I generally do not mess with Kenwood products. However, it has all of the features that I want. First and most notably, the ability to play the file types that I want. But this one is the super big deal, is the high voltage 5 volt pre-out. This means that I'm going to be able to drive those amplifiers properly and give them a nice, clean, distortion-free signal, which that Sony head unit was not giving me. By the way, this is the Kenwood Kmr D772bt, and since I am replacing the radio, of course I have to replace the controller as well. This is the KCA RC55MR, and I have the cable in order to connect the two together. This radio also comes with a bunch of features that I will not be utilizing, like the Bluetooth connectivity, and also it has time alignment, which I won't be doing, but it does have an equalizer built into it, so I may actually end up tuning the system way more than I had ever done before. Okay, so now I've removed the radio, and these are all of the wires that need to come out. I've removed all the equipment that I just spent all that time installing. I cut an access hole to the back of the controller so I can replace that guy. And unfortunately, the next step is that I'm going to have to feed all of this through, all the way through the wall, along with these wires, in order to pop out where that radio came in, because my brilliant face thought it would be a good idea in order to zip tie everything together, which is completely non-serviceable and is not something that you should be doing inside of walls. But I did it. Out with the old, and not gonna be that easy. The hole is too big. So I just made this 1/8 inch thick acrylic little bezel, this trim panel. It's going to fit right on there, and it adds about a 3/16 inch diameter to it. I did put a round over on it just to make it a little pretty, and it'll make it so that I can use that oversized hole in there, no problem. And now the new controller is in place, and if I didn't tell you that there was a little acrylic ring trimming it out, you wouldn't even know. It just looks like it's part of it. Hooray! One step complete. On the back side, I threw a couple extra little globs of silicone around the outside just for some added insurance to make sure that no water ever comes through. All of the wires are officially pulled through. I've already loomed them. This time I actually trimmed it out proper. The USB port, rather than hanging out all free, is now a flush mount there. Got the same trim ring there as I do on all the PVC pipes, so it'll match everything. Not that anyone's ever going to notice. And inside the bathroom, I'm now ready for the radio install. I've got the wiring run there, the USB port, as well as the controller and the RCAs all ready for the radio. And just like that, I have my first ever Kenwood radio in my life. I'm so excited about this Kenwood CD player that I'm actually going to leave the Sony branding over it. Why? Why not? Yeah, that is a clean signal! So I worked real hard on this system to make it so that you wouldn't be able to see the wires, but the ironic part is that since this mirror finish on this amplifier, it allows you to see underneath that fin and see the wiring, so of course we have to solve that problem. And just like that, real quick and simple, a nice piece of black acrylic hides the wiring and makes it so that you can't see in, and I am much more pleased with the way that this looks now. In fact, I dare say it looks perfect. Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. So I take it you want to know how the new system is performing. Well, I've had a few months to listen to a bunch of variety of music on it, including the original track from Dark Light Sessions that blew the subwoofer, and I can tell you, I am pleased. Some of my new favorite demo tracks have been Louis the Child's Big Love, Bass Nectar's Noise, and Kashmir's Song of War. I don't think I need to tell you that this setup is loud, and by that I mean stupid loud. This would be a respectable setup for an entire full-sized boat, so to put it in a shower is very serious overkill. But more importantly than just how loud it is how good it sounds, and by that I mean it's stupid good. I got to play with the EQ settings on the radio and just kind of turn down the brightness that's inherent with Marine speakers, and it can give me really enjoyable, serious volume. The Fusion amplifiers and speakers are absolute powerhouses, and I really appreciate the amount of output that I get from them. The Kenwood radio has typical Kenwood little nuances, like having to wait a whopping whole 7 seconds for turn on to music, and a less than desirable button layout and tactile response. But all of that can be forgiven because it provides me the versatility and the quality of the features that I required. Overall, I'm just as giddy with this setup as I was when I did my original setup 9 years ago. So if you want to get your body rocked and get wet in the process, come on by Superior Mobile and check it out for yourself. This is 13 with Superior Mobile by 13. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later.